Welcome to the Engagement Fit Drive podcast. I'm Andrew Aubrey.
And I'm Tracy Moxie. Through insightful discussions and practical strategies, get ready to unlock the tools you need to thrive and make your unique mark on the world. We welcome you back for part 2 of this, where we're going to be discussing Andrew's Moderator with my Navigator. Welcome back, and thank you for spending this time with Andrew and myself. We are carrying on in this episode, this is going to be part 2 from our last episode, where we went into the contrast of the Innovator Moderator drive. In this episode, we're talking the contrast of the Navigator Moderator drive. And as you know, Andrew and I continue to share our beautiful drives with you and how they contrast. And it's been such an interesting journey for the both of us, from learning from each other, with Andrew's dominant drives being my drainers and vice versa. So let me just recap, because we have spoken about Navigator before in episode number 3. So if you didn't listen to that, go and have a good listen to that. You can learn all about the Navigator. And I'm going to dive in and just speak to you about the Navigator drive from a different perspective. Now, I don't know if any of you know the Waze app. So this is a dynamic navigation app where you just put in your point where you are right now and then the point where you would like to go to. And this app very, very quickly plots your course. And as you actually begin your journey, the app will reroute, redirect, avoid traffic accidents, breakdowns, whatever's going to be an obstruction in your way. This app very, very quickly redirects you and gives you a better route to go. And this is exactly how the Navigator thinks. It's a thinking drive. The speed at which the Navigator can think and reroute and change direction, make very fast decisions, is just like this app. So it's quite a nice analogy to use if you think about how much information is needed to reroute and change direction. That is the speed of which a navigator has the capacity to do.
With the moderator, and where moderators and navigators are contrast, is the moderator wants clear rules, expectations, and parameters in which to operate, whereas navigators want to maneuver quickly without being inhibited by too many rules. Very interesting to note that both navigators and innovators, where moderators like to color in the lines, navigators and innovators like to color outside the lines. Innovators doing that in the context of blank canvas and creativity, and navigators doing that from the point of view is, I see an obstacle coming, I need to navigate around it. What are the best options? And sometimes the best options are not in the field of view. And that's an ability that a navigator can do so well and so fast, is to look ahead and see all available options and pick the best route and then make the call to avoid the obstacles that they see coming. Where moderator is all about working to create stability and predictability in your relationships and environments, what can happen is that navigators doing what they do well can see an obstacle coming, can make a very quick decision that changes the course of the direction in which they're going. And if they do not communicate that clearly to the drives that are more around being stable, certain, predictable, routine, structured, it can cause problems there. And so it's really important for navigators to remember to communicate the reasons why they've made the change. Because if moderators all about coming up with tried and tested ways of doing things, and through that bringing clarity of expectations, rules, procedures, standard operating procedures, and getting everyone on the same page. If there's a lot of change and that change is not communicated and that change is not clearly communicated as to why it's happening, it can really destabilize a lot of the things that those other drives bring in terms of stability and efficiency.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Andrew, that this drive needs to really, really master the skill of communication, because you can very easily leave people behind because they don't know where you're going, why you're going, or how you're going. And you can also cause a bit of where people are just like, well, we're not going to go because they're going to change their mind in the next 5 minutes. So we're not even on board with this. Whereas if you can communicate that clearly, what you can see, how you're going to get there, why you're going there, that just gives people a little bit more certainty on being able to go with you and get involved in the journey that you're taking, the decisions that you're making. I think that's very, very important. That communication for the navigator is key, because they think so fast and they don't realize that people, not even being able to comprehend the idea, let alone actually move towards going to do that change. So they don't realize the speed of their own thinking. And that can definitely leave people behind or leave people confused, and then you're going to lose your team. So it's very important to communicate.
I think the other thing to remember, and Tracy said it before, is that when it's just about you and using all of these wonderful fast drives and these drives that play towards self-confidence and to being able to navigate situations on the fly, it's okay. But the minute there's a team component involved and you've got a cross-section of diverse different drives that all have huge value and can play really well into all the different operating parts of running a business, communication really is a critical component. And understanding the different ways of decision making, the different ways of making sense of things, is where this framework is so important. Because otherwise it can feel like people are just not wanting to play a game or they're being difficult. And yet their natural patterns of thinking, feeling, and behavior run opposite to the way you see things and the way you make sense of things. And that's the value of this particular framework, is helping people to clearly understand where these differences lie and how to manage them, and to be able to, in some cases, to be compassionate towards different styles of thinking, feeling, and behaving, because we are all unique in the way that we work, we interact, and the way we relate.
Andrew, let's just add to that in terms of, in part one, where we discussed innovator and moderator. Let's look at this now as in the innovator and moderator could have a discussion about what needed to possibly change or be better. But when the navigator can really come to the fore and be so useful in a state of emergency or something that needs to be done really quickly, the navigator will be the one that can step up and make those fast decisions. So if you trust the navigator in your team, that they do think so quickly, that they have already figured out the obstacles, they can go around that. I think that's so important, is to trust that navigator with communication, obviously, but in a time of crisis when maybe there's not so much time to communicate, to sit and plan and think, let the navigator take the lead in your team. Let them get you out of those stormy waters. Let them navigate you back to the calm and stability that you so desperately need as a moderator.
When an organization plans strategically for the future and you have a vision and You have a goal that you're working towards, and you do strategic planning for the long term. And then you've got the people who are keeping the organization afloat in the here and now, and all the different drives that apply to that. The domain of where your navigators are really coming to their own is in navigating from what's happening in the moment to the vision that is not a fixed point in the future. No one knows what the future holds. And therefore, you can think and plan all you like, but life happens. And so the navigator, another way to think about the navigator is the battlefield commander, where you have got a big picture of the whole war that's happening and what this person is doing on the fly and dynamically and very fast is being able to zoom in from big picture into detail to see things that are coming and make decisions around what should happen next and how to move towards the goal that they want to achieve, or the vision or the mission that they want to achieve, and what options are available to do that. And that is the real strength of the navigator drive, is dynamically moving from the here and now into the future and figuring out the best option, the most strategic way to go, and making the call.
I like that analogy, Andrew. Very nice. I like that.
We hope that as we've discussed what the role of the moderator is and what the role of the navigator and the innovator is, that you are starting to recognize where these drives might play out for you and the value that each drive brings. Tracy mentioned something earlier around trust. And one of the things that I have really grown to appreciate around this particular framework in terms of leading is to be trusted in the value that you bring in the different drives that you bring, in managing them well, in being able to understand what they bring and the value that they bring, that others can depend on you and to trust in you for that particular way of thinking, feeling, or behaving, and how that plays out for the better good of the organization and the company. And this is not only in the role that you're filling, but also could have a bigger picture application in terms of we want to start a new project. So who are the people that we know have the type of drives that we need to be able to achieve this new goal or this new project that we want to roll out? And that for me is the really powerful application of what drive is all about. And to know when you have strong drives, to manage them well, and to lead when your strengths are needed, and then to follow when somebody else has the strengths that you need to follow in that moment.
Lovely, Andrew. Thank you for spending the time with us. And we look forward to being with you in our next podcast.
Yes, and thank you so much. And as Tracy has already said, we really hope that as we continue to do more of these, that you're getting clearer on what the drives are and reflecting on what they mean for you and the value that they do bring, to be celebrating the value and the impact that you can bring in the way that you have been, in the drive energy that you have, and that this is all about sustainability and the passion to keep going in an area where you have natural, strong energy. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Engagement Fit Drive podcast.
We hope you found invaluable insights that will empower you on your path to self-discovery and fulfillment.
Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with anyone who's ready to unlock their full potential.
Until next time, keep engaging, keep thriving, and keep driving towards a life filled with purpose.